So, whenever you're ready, we'll just do like a 1, 2, 3. Hi, and I'm, and then we'll move right into it. If that makes sense, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Brian Reinhart.
Hi, I'm Joe McDonald.
And I'm Wayne Giles.
And why don't you, let's actually do it in the sense where it's like, hi, I'm Brian Reinhart. I'm the, media development specialist, or, whatever and then we'll move to you and you kind of say who you are, and then we'll do the same for you, very brief. And then once our introductions are done, we're going to just come back to you.
Okay.
And we'll start with the first question to you, and then anybody can just kind of jump in at any point and answer a question. If somebody feels like they want to respond, they can. And I'll just kind of bounce a few between you two, and then you can describe your 12-step online, whatever that thing is. Yeah.
ISE.
So
Yeah.
we probably, you can cut it anyway, right? Because we're going to want to talk about his meeting first, but we can cut it anyway.
Oh, well then why don't you start with that? Great.
Yeah, so we'll probably go to you first and have him. Yeah, introductions, and then maybe roll to him.
Great.
And then
We'll go introductions, and then you can go right into what you wanted to describe about your meetings, and then whenever you see a natural point where you're like, and yeah, now we're developing this 12-step thing.
Okay.
Perfect. Whenever you are ready.
I'm Brian Reinhart, the Media Development Manager at the New Freedom Project.
And I'm Joe McDonald, Chief Executive Officer at New Freedom Project.
I'm Wayne Giles. I'm the Clinical Executive Assistant at New Freedom.
Can you tell us a little bit about your PON meetings and what they mean to you and everyone else?
Many years ago, I was attending a recovery meeting of my own, and I had been a guy who had been in recovery and struggled in recovery. I could not, the messaging and it just didn't make any sense. I was getting sicker, not getting better. And I heard a man break down the testimony that's written in AA's book, and I knew instantly, all those years ago, that I was going to have to do that. I needed to be able to do what that man did, and I needed to be able to do that till God told me I didn't have to do it anymore. It was that impactful. And so I knew the man, and I spent time with him, and I learned what he did, and then I later, he later went on and relapsed and did whatever some people do, but I figured out that you only talked clearly about the testimony of that book if you were walking that testimony out in your own life. And so my life started to resemble that which I was speaking about, at least the best way I could imagine, and I knew it would be impactful to lots of people, and it has proven to be impactful to lots of people. And then I met the two guys on my right and my left along the way, and both of them brought a unique lens to what we now call the interactive step experience. We started using it to reach people on prison yards, but then we wanted it to be more engaging, to not only engage them, but to engage other people that are imprisoned in other ways. And Wayne brought a really unique clinical lens to a product that required not only a clinical and evidence-based approach, but it required a spiritual certainty and a lived experience that gave it credibility. And so he brought that lens and that language, and it sprang to life. And Brian brought the creative eye to it. Brian knew nothing that I could tell other than his own enthusiasm for what it was doing in his walk. And he was being stripped of all the baggage and all the spiritual burdens of the world right before all of our eyes. It was just the most amazing transformation. And a big part of that was he decided he was going to start streaming and doing things with the product to reach it out. We're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, so there was a great thirst for anything meaningful throughout the country. And Brian made it his personal mission, in spite of great opposition. We're in the middle of a startup company. And we got all these people coming in that were temporarily in charge of things, and all trying to boss Brian around on how to do that which his own passion was driving him to excellence in. And I stood back and I watched this, and I finally pulled Brian aside and I said, excuse my language, whoever's listening, fuck them, Brian. I'm standing on
That was
camera
literal.
before 7,000 people every night, and you're taking the heat from me and from them. We're not listening to any of them anymore.
Yeah.
We're doing it the way we do it. And from that, we just got this creative gel. The three of us and Eric spent all last summer lounging ourselves around the pool, figuring out
Just
how
walking
to
it
do
through.
this. It was almost the living joke. Oh, they're over there, they're over there filming, and we come out with tans, top to
Filming.
bottom. And, but the reality is, it's just a labor of love.
Yeah.
And it's brought all these viewpoints to a place that we really think it's going to reach people.
Love that. How did you develop it in the sense of what it was to where it is now?
So it's, excuse me, it's kind of interesting how it all developed. Like Joe said, PON saved my life. God truly saved my life, but that was the delivery device for that. And so, I think I said this earlier, but my passion came from just that saved my life, and I just wanted to share it with as many people as possible. And I remember Wayne and Joe talking about, I want to turn this into something. I don't know if the words curriculum were used early on, but it was something like that. So I kept hearing it, and one day I saw Joe sitting in the lobby, and I was like, I think it's time to turn this into something. So in the beginning, I think we had, 20 people sitting around the table?
Something like that, 20 different people with their own viewpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Their own way that they thought it needed to be. I was one of those 20 people.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Wayne was a little difficult in the beginning.
Well, I remember sitting in the early days. Joe and I were sitting in the kitchen, and he said, "Yeah, we're gonna write a book on." Well, I don't think we used the word curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, and I just said, I want to be a part of that. I didn't know how big a part or what part or any of that, but I knew in that moment with the certainty of the Spirit that I needed to be a part of it.
I love that.
So I think from there, how it really progressed was we ended up taking 2 seasons of Joe's meeting that we were live streaming. We had them turned into transcripts, and Wayne and myself in the beginning sat down and we were, pulling whatever we could from that, and Wayne was kind of running it through his clinical lens, and I'm sitting there, I'm still kind of going through my walk, my mind's racing a million miles an hour, and I'm not helping much. I think at some points I was tapping my keyboard. He's like, will you fucking stop that? But anyhow, the process just started flowing, and like Joe said, there was a lot of adversity. I had 2 or 3 different supervisors over me that tried to kill the project the entire time. For whatever reason, they never saw viability, they were just assholes, whatever the reason was, but they absolutely did. And I was truly driven to keep pushing forward. Even through other opportunities that were trying to arise, anytime I would pray about it, God just told me to go sit my ass back down in that chair and keep working on this project. It's important. And I never imagined it going where it's gonna go. Ultimately how it got turned into an interactive step experience beyond just the written curriculum was I was working on an LMS for, I think, HR or something like that. And it just struck me in that moment, like, not everybody has access to someone that can take them through the 12-step process. And I was more thinking out in the world at the time. And I don't know if it was a conversation between the 3 of us or whatever happened, but I think Joe came up with, well, we should absolutely be offering it to someone in incarceration. And I think, Joe, you can kind of expand the purpose behind that. But
Yeah, well, we started finding out a lot of the programming in prison is for people that are close to the gate. If you're there for very long, you're denied a lot of programming, so you really don't have meaningful ways to spend your time. And if you've had behavioral maladaptations while you're in prison, you get isolated more and more. And so most of the people that are coming out in traditional transitional programs, they're people that didn't hit on the high custody yards. They were people that didn't do as much time. They had done shorter stretches, and then maybe they continue to reoffend until they become these other folks. But we had a particular appeal. I was getting letters from people who were in 23-hour-a-day lockdown cells, and say, I have a lot of time to think in here and to reflect upon my life, and from where I'm sitting, I really don't have a life to look forward to. And then I heard you talking, and I realized that the world I was seeing was not the world at all, but my thoughts. And now I'm daring to believe I can come out and be somebody. And so I thought, man, if we can reach that man 23 hours a day in a concrete box,
Right.
we can reach anyone, anywhere in the world with ears.
Well, the whole point of the ISE is to free people from the prison in their minds.
Right.
And if we can do that for people that are sitting in prison, sitting in a box, free the whole world that way.
Right. And I think that the true idea is to simulate someone sitting down with you and walking you through the 12-step process. We have recordings of Joe just in a nice, comfortable environment, especially in an isolation cell, like he's talking to you, not at you. And he's walking you through that 12-step process. I remember years and years ago when I was in recovery, I was chairing meetings, I was doing all these things, but I was still completely miserable. I was missing a big piece. And I would try to read that book, and it would sound, the book Alcoholics Anonymous, I would try to read that book, and it would sound like, I don't know if this makes sense, but it would sound like the Charlie Brown Christmas special in my head. I'm trying to come off of things, and I'm just a wreck, and I'm just hearing want, 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 want. I can't glean anything from it, I can't understand it. And it wasn't until Joe, through position of neutrality and then personally sponsoring me, that showed me what was in that book, what it meant.
Joe always says you have to be taught how to read it. And once you are, it begins to open up. It becomes almost a living, breathing thing that begins to affect your life. And I think that's the goal of it, too. Another goal of it.
Well, and the interactive experience is because it's not enough to be shown how to read it. You have to do what it says.
You have to
And
live
so,
it.
so if you don't, first of all, be shown how to read, how to experience the book, then you have no potential to know how to do what it says. Because it doesn't tell you what not to do, which it tells you what to do, and when you go the wrong way, admit it promptly and go the other way.
Right.
It tells you how to take captive your thoughts, subordinate your ego, and shine for God's people. That's what it tells you to do. And when you do that, you're free.
Yes.
And so we need them to start engaging. And so these guys in 23-hour lockdown, when they get an hour or so, or throwing a kite to somewhere else or doing whatever, they would start thinking of other people.
Right.
Even in that situation. And if we don't do those things, and we don't show people how to do those things, because doesn't come to us naturally as human beings to do that.
I think it allows them the opportunity to get free from the prison of their mind while they're in there. They still may be incarcerated, but they can gain some freedom while still inside and begin to make that shift, even before they hit the streets, which gives them just a clear advantage, into something new, a new life, a new freedom.
A new freedom.
Yeah.
And we want them to understand the 12-step process is just a process. It's a proven process. But the big thing we want them to believe is nobody comes here believing in some meaningful way, because we come to looking for this solution with difficulties in our lives. And so that's why you have a come to believe step. We come to believe. The truth is, it isn't until I serve that I even come to know the difference between my thoughts and my eyesight.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a daily process.
I was going to say, he said difficulties. Difficulties is the understatement of the millennia.
And I can go from minute to minute, from day to day, and get hit upside the head with the same thoughts, right? Right? And becoming aware of that, I think, too, is something we're trying to teach. We're becoming aware of the clinical people call it self-care and all that, all those
Right.
things, and cognitive behavioral therapy and all of that. And it some of that applies, obviously, hence my clinical lens.
I was gonna
And the
say, it sounds like
spiritual
wah-wah
lens.
to me, but
Well, and the spiritual lens too, right? I tell people all the time, there's cognitive behavioral therapy all the way throughout the Bible, right? Take captive every thought and bring it into obedience to Christ. Let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. There's all of these instances of it where it's telling us to do exactly that.
Yeah.
And the fact is, the only problem with the clinical lens is it assumes a baseline that does not exist for someone in insanity.
Correct.
Right.
So we're changing the world in many ways.
Yeah.
Anything else that you guys want to add?
I don't really think so.
Tell the story how it came about.
Which part?
Just the conceptual of the ISE. Where did it happen at? What room? What place? How did,
Well, Joe
the
was talking
conversation
about it
come
in
up?
June when I could still taste the pipe on my lips. You know what I mean? And I just
Right.
knew that we needed to do something, and it spawned even more, right? Because sometimes I think, was Joe talking about that we're seeking the same power? Or was he talking about the PON? Or was he talking about the one
I think
that
there
we're
was
doing with
snippets
Caesar,
of each, right?
Well, I can tell you, I can take you back, but I can't tell you about the ISE because that was an evolutionary product.
Right.
Right.
And continues to be an evolutionary product. I mean, Rodney's a big part of that. Eric's a big part of that. Jeremy's a big part of that. Everyone in this room today, these filmmakers are a part of that.
Right.
The evolutionary process is about 15 years ago, maybe more, maybe more. I watched a study on television, some show, and they were talking about the problems with religion in America. And they did a survey with the youth in America, and like 80% of the youth in America found that the church was no longer relevant to their lives.
Mm.
And I went to a pastor friend of mine and I said, I saw this study. He goes, yeah, I saw that. And I said, are you not disturbed? Are you not in your prayer teams working? He goes, oh, no, that doesn't disturb me. They'll come around. And I go, wow, the next generation finds you irrelevant and you see no meaning in that. And I thought, man, I'm going to do something about that because that's huge. And I wasn't a church guy.
Right.
But I knew that the spiritual reality had to be known to our youth. And so I started envisioning a relevant religion center. And my vision of a relevant religion center looked a lot like what you're sitting in.
Ta-da.
And a matter of fact, one of the book ideas I had was to call it Relevant Religion, the New Freedom Story. But anyway, that's how we came to be, and
Right.
the Spirit just kept bringing us people that could add, literally. I mean, you are the salt of the earth. The Lord just kept bringing us salt.
Yeah. You know, interesting thought that just hit me right now. You're talking about relevant religion, making religion relevant, making access to God, to power relevant for our youth. And I'm sitting there in the office over there coming up with comic book ideas to introduce them to power. I'm thinking of children books, video games, all of those things. If that's not that, I don't know what is.
I've been, the last several months, I've had just the firm impression that all of these products and all of that we're doing right now, the comic books and the ISE, and that we're seeking the same power, and I don't even know all of them, right? There's things in Brian's head that I know, but he hasn't even told us about yet. He's being secretive.
Well, we just got enough on the plate already,
Yeah.
so.
I just overwhelmingly felt that this is going to spark a revival. And
Yeah.
It's going to burn like fire.
Yeah, I believe it already has.
And we've been telling people, all the executive team here are less involved with church things than some of the rest of us. And so the culture of the place has always been dependent on those of us with our pockets full of anointing oil and our our prayers and worships and but what I have, I got one too.
Yeah, me too.
But what I knew is that we needed to be relevant to everybody, and we needed to exclude nobody. And I knew that the faith-based lanes were going to find us, and they were going to seed us.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see it. The band that played here the other night, the lead singer came here because he's been convicted that he needs to work here. You know, I know he probably hasn't announced that to anyone else, so maybe I shouldn't say that too soon. But you know, we're starting to find that the faith-based lanes are coming in because they're realizing this is relevant religion.
No, absolutely.
This is the blind see, the lame walk, the captives are set free every day. Anyone that doesn't believe in God and hasn't been shown the scriptures, come walk through this place with any one of the three of us.
And you'll
Right.
know it every step of the way. I was raised in the church. I was raised in a church that wanted to bang the rule book at me, and I just was tired of the rule book. I don't do well with rules, right? So relevant religion
Yeah.
is not banging the rule book at people. We're
Well,
already
it's
saved by
meeting people
grace.
where they are,
Yeah.
you know? Because I ran from that kind of stuff. You know, I was raised in a different way. Like, there was no God. So that was one of the hardest things for me to grasp, was that there is something greater than myself. And it wasn't just the drugs that I was using.
Right.
Because, I mean, those
I,
are...
I are not God.
Yeah, you know.
Right.
I mean, I'll admit, there was times I thought it was, but guess what? I'm not.
Well, and to a person, this team is, they're a group of people with a capacity for great good. And we were schooled in the scriptures that, why do you call me good? There's nothing but good but God.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that means when I see this much good culminating, that means there's nothing there but God. And wherever that is that God is, that's where I want to be. And
Yeah.
I want to surround myself with all of his instruments.
No, and I can say for myself too, today, that's absolutely, I'm just drawn to it naturally now.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, despite the spiritual attacks, despite the shiny objects that are put in our way,
Right.
you know, you name it, it comes in every form.
Oh, and there's been spiritual attacks. One thing that I've, you know, just like the meeting we had the other day about the we're all seeking the same power. I stood up in the room. I was convicted to stand up in the room and warn the team that when you're working on something this important and this big that's going to impact as many people's lives and changing, you know, their destinies really, or however you want to say that, but just changing their mindsets and their hearts, spiritual attacks are going to come. Spiritual attacks are going to come, and they've absolutely have, but we've, you know, been supported through them by Christ, and we walk through it every time.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Right, one more. This is a very important question. What is your go-to item at Taco Mish?
Bean burrito, enchilada style, red sauce. Come on.
I think we got it. folks.
Yeah.